So we have already, in the previous section, covered how is it that we're going to be using GitHub, leveraging its power and using it as the foundation of the entire CI/CD process. During this section, we're going to get started with App Center. And we're going to be building the application that we will be using throughout the rest of the course for continuous integration, continuous quality, and continuous delivery. So before getting started with that, let's talk about what is App Center. This is going to be a quick introduction to this Microsoft mobile-centered DevOps service. So as we saw in the first lecture of this course, App Center is going to be a service that is mobile-centered and that allows you to do way more than just CI and CD. Of course, because that is the purpose of this course, it allows you to do precisely that, to automate the integration of new versions of your code, mainly those that are triggered when a merge happens in a certain branch. It is also going to allow you to execute tests that we're also going to be adding to our project in one of the next sections, and eventually automate the delivery of that new version of your project. And this can happen directly through App Center or be deployed to the app stores. It also allows you to track bugs and track usage of your application. And this is going to be very powerful because it can allow you to identify what new feature or what new issue you have to work on, which would mark the beginning of the entire CI/CD process, you coding a new feature or solving a current issue. And these two services right here are the ones that we're going to be using throughout this section. I'll talk more about that in a few seconds, but these two services again are going to be really important when you want to understand exactly how your users behave inside of your application or what issues they may be facing when you use your application. Finally, there are three other services that currently are in beta, but that make App Center a really complete service for us mobile developers. And that is databases, user authentication, and push notifications. So indeed, App Center can really be the only service that you use for your mobile applications. It allows you to do everything from having your app's databases in there, the user authentication, notifications, track usage, and even implement CI and CD directly inside of this service. Now, we are not going to be covering these three services that I mentioned, mainly because they are still in preview state, but also because I want to focus on something else. And that something else is these two elements right here. The ability for us to identify bugs and the ability for us to track how our users behave inside of the application. This is going to be the first step that we take with App Center. And we're going to be working with these two throughout this section as we create a brand new Xamarin Forms application. And essentially, this will mean that we are going to be tracking errors. Any exception that we may not be handling correctly or that we want to understand when is it happening can be tracked through App Center. So eventually, no matter if we are testing on our own phone or have deployed to 10 developers or to 20 testers or to our thousands of users, we can, from a single place, that is App Center, identify exactly what errors are being thrown and what is it that we have to solve inside of our application. And also, we're going to be tracking events. And this is going to allow us to understand how the users behave inside of the application. Are they using that new feature that we have just deployed? Are they finding that page that is very important for us? Are we seeing good conversion rates from people who download the application to people who actually sign up for the service? All of these things are ideal candidates for us to start tracking them, to understand if our users actually behave inside of the application the way that we think they do. And again, no matter if you are tracking events for 3 or 4 developers, or 10 to 20 testers, or thousands of users, all of that can be concentrated inside of App Center, thanks to this ability to track events And the implementation of this is actually going to be quite simple once you have your App Center account ready. So this is what we're going to do throughout this section, but can you skip it? Can you skip this section if you just want to go ahead and implement CI and CD inside of your application? Well, yes, you can if you follow the next lecture. In the next lecture, we're going to be creating our own App Center account, and we're going to explore App Center a little bit. So if you take the next lecture, sure, you can skip this section if you want. But also keep in mind that we are going to be building an app from the ground up. And it is a good idea to have a good sense about what that app does the whole time. You know where certain events are being tracked and how they are being tracked. So eventually, when you implement CI and CD, it is easier for you to add new features here and there. But if you are building your own app, you don't have to build the app that we're going to be creating in this section. You can implement CI and CD in your own app, so you don't need the app that we're going to be building. If you have your own way of tracking, you can add those tracking services to that application that you are building. So you can also be aware of how your users behave and identify what issues, what bugs may exist inside of your application. If that is also the case, sure, you can skip this section and jump directly to the continuous integration one. If you are fine just downloading the source code, maybe you don't need to fully understand the application, you just want to jump ahead to the CI and CD sections. In the next section, I'm actually going to provide to you the source code that we're going to be building throughout this section. So if you want, you can just skip to the next section, download that source code, and implement CI and CD into that source code yourself. Although again, it may take you a little bit longer to identify exactly where things are happening. How is our code behaving, and maybe even how we connect to App Center if you don't build the application from the ground up, as we're going to be doing in this section. But enough slides. This was a brief introduction to Microsoft's App Center. Hopefully now you realize how important App Center can be to mobile developers, since it can be pretty much the only service that they use throughout the entire development process, from implementing databases and user authentication to actually having continuous integration, continuous quality with tests happening in the cloud, and continuous delivery. In the next lecture, we're going to jump ahead and create our App Center account. We're going to explore the service a little bit so we can go back to Visual Studio, create a new project, and implement App Center services inside of it.